Epstein docs reveal Clinton was around more kids than a kindergarten teacher. A conservative, woke-free beer made by a guy who looks like he spent his frat days making sure his date wasn't woke and up when she finished her drink. America invaded France with donuts and won. And Trump's off the ballot, but still in our hearts. Welcome to the Semi-Daily Night Show.
Ladies and gentlemen,
The Semi-Daily Night Show with Gary TV, your host, Gary.
Tonight's ceremonial first pitch. And please welcome the President of the United States.
We did it, sir.
just making sure you're paying attention.
Epstein client list just dropped, and the first person on the list is... If you don't know what just happened, you missed the best years on the internet. The Epstein docs to me are like a Morgan Wallen album is to a Nashville girl. It's basically Christmas. Now, this isn't exactly a client list, but court documents of Ghislaine Maxwell's case. But the docs are more edited than a Kardashian's Instagram photo. But it does name a few people, like David Copperfield, who made all of the girls' IDs disappear. Oh, I'm the bad guy for that joke. Prince Andrew was also named, and he seems to enjoy...
Little baby weenie, blam up your ass, butter your own biscuit, fat ass, that have told me that my parents deserve...
Rewind that if you didn't understand that, because that joke's amazing. The prince found himself among more children than a daycare. You know how bad of a person you have to be for the royal family to hate you? There was a name redacted from the document, but with my investigative skills, we looked into it, and we found it to be your mom. Stephen Hawkings was also mentioned to visit the island, and now him being on the island isn't that surprising. He's always enjoyed black holes. If you think those jokes were too far, you're not going to make it through the next 5 minutes. The new conservative woke-free beer made by that guy who looks like a former frat president that preferred his dates weren't woke and up after the drink he made them is in trouble. The conservative Dad's Beer Company dropped a calendar that divided the right like the conflict in Israel. Ultra-right beer released a calendar of real women, and it has January 6th as a national holiday. I'm kidding, but that would have been hilarious. This is a new company that claims to have the first woke-free beer and first beer to somehow hate immigrants. I made that last part up, but it just might if you look at the can. The company included Twitter conservative women in their calendar in provocative situations because exploiting women's bodies for profit is conservative dad-like. What's next? Liberals are going to be pro-war? What the f*** is happening? And to be fair, a lot of Republicans have questioned this calendar's stance. And when pushed on the fact that conservative dad is pushing a calendar of other women, the CEO defended this product by saying the calendar should motivate guys' wives to go to the gym. Told you this guy was probably a frat president. Now, 6-pack of ultra-right beer shipped to your door comes to the low price of $28. And by the looks of all the comments, people's orders haven't even shipped in months. Their shipping is slower than Biden leaving a speech. Now I work in marketing, and that delayed shipping email would crush. Just saying. Now, poking fun at conservatives always backfires, and I make fun of the left more, but stick with me here. As a nation, we
had beers. Sometimes I had too many beers. I liked beer. I still like beer. Have some beers.
And we had fun. Then Bud Light put the equivalent of a woman, as much as Bud Light is the equivalent of beer, on their can. And we all agreed to leave politics out of our beer. And now we're back to my beer needs to reflect my stance on transgender bathrooms. No, that's really a talking point when you try to buy the beer. I just worry we're getting to a point where if I shotgun a beer, I'm going to be called an NRA member. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But if we're going to make beer political, then IPAs support child labor. I don't know how, but I'm going to stir the hops. Get it? Hops, because IPAs have more hops. You follow me. America has invaded France, calorically. Krispy Kreme, the donut shop chain, has landed in France, and the French have finally learned croissants suck. All successful invasions of our time have included deception, and this cankle marching invasion isn't any different. The French aren't worried about the corporation coming in and competing with French bakeries, because they believe that people won't eat donuts every day. They're gonna eat those words. They're going to eat everything. On the day it opened, over 400 Parisians, that's actually how you say people that live in Paris, lined up outside of the door. Some started lining up at 10 p.m. the night before for donuts that don't have sprinkles. And the first 10 customers get a year's supply of donuts. The invasion was successful. People were even banging on the doors once they closed. Think about that. People were borderline rioting for a donut that is neither crispy nor creamy. It's the Americanized croissant. That isn't the only form of invasion happening in France. McDonald's now has more stores in France than all across Europe, and Popeyes is planning to open stores in the coming years. The US may not invade countries militarily anymore, but that's because the only thing we have more than bombs is calories. I mean, look at what we did in Italy. And speaking of caloric war crimes, Lindsey Graham is once again fighting an unjust war. The Republican senator is trying to reject a bill that would force Chick-fil-A to be open on Sundays. If you need any more reason to hate that man with an extended chin, he wants to stop the possibility of Chick-fil-A being open every day of the week. Now, a bill would require future Chick-fil-A's on rest stops to remain open as truckers rely heavily on rest stops to be able to do their job. Republicans have violated the Geneva Convention. Not really, but they did, by speaking out against this and saying it is an attack on conservative Christian businesses. Now, the greatest fast food establishment created has notoriously been closed on Sunday as they are a religious-owned company and have predominantly been outspoken on their views that marriage should only be between a man and a woman. I once lived with a roommate who was gay. Great guy, love him, and he still ate Chick-fil-A. That's how good it is. Chick-fil-A being closed on Sunday is the only reason opioid-addicted states still like Whataburger. It takes a drug addict to say that place is good. And you can debate me on that if you show me a negative drug test. Conservatives have painted this as a religious battle, and it could be considered that, but the true sin we aren't talking about is anyone who chooses buffalo sauce over Chick-fil-A sauce. So Lindsey Graham, it would be my pleasure if you f***ed off. Facebook's diversity manager stole $4 million from the company. That's one way to diversify your income. Come on, that was funny. From 2017 to 2021, Barbara Furlow Smiles led Facebook's diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at Facebook. Those are meetings where they tell you everything you do is racist, even though all you do is build spreadsheets. That's why I don't color code my cells. I need a vacation. Since Barbara led these meetings, she also approved the invoices of these programs, where she paid friends and families under services never provided to the company. She would also use PayPal and Venmo connected to the company card to pay her friends and then submit expense reports to cover her tracks. She quite literally was the PayPal of her friend group. But if you zoom out, she's someone who just worked really hard. The leader of diversity, equity, and inclusion diversified her income, used her equity in Facebook to grab funds, and included her friends and family in her crimes. How is that not a good practice of diversity, equity, and inclusion? Wait, diversity, equity, and inclusion has nothing to do with finances? Oh, that's f***ed up. Fresh and Fit, the podcast where no one is fresh and anyone looks fit in a small t-shirt, got roasted by one of the greatest comedians of all time, Andrew Schulz. Now, Fresh and Fit is a podcast where they bring on morally misguided girls with the link in their bio to insult them on their decisions because they say that's what men do. And in an episode of Flagrant, they joked about the podcast, as comedians do. And the size small t-shirt subscriber was offended by this, which resulted in a response from Andrew. Myron's fans, which are usually guys with a Roman emperor profile that call women whores for having an Instagram despite being too ugly to show themselves on the internet, got upset at Andrew Schulz. So the Fresh and Not Fit fan group had their mommy come in and back them up. Pearl came to the rescue. If you aren't familiar with Pearl, this is a woman who just shits on other women for being single and over the age of 22, which are two things she is. But I'm sure Tim Pool fans still like her. Yeah, I made fun of him again, despite it ruining my like ratio. I don't care. You people listen to a grown man who wears skinny jeans. Cry more. Pearl called Andrew Schulz a failed comedian. He sold out Madison Square Garden multiple nights in a row. This is what happens when you take too much red pill. The red pill is like Molly. The first few times it's fun, you say weird shit, but by the fifth time, you got a problem. A little bit of red pill is good, but too much makes you think you're a Roman emperor when in reality, you just work at a smoke shop and sell vapes to underage kids. Donald Trump has been removed from the Maine ballot. This comes after Colorado was attempting to remove Trump in an effort to protect democracy, because the only way to protect democracy is by removing it? This is what happens when a generation of people old enough to vote also collect Pokemon cards. Now, all this is being brought up as an interpretation of the 14th Amendment, which I'm sure you've heard more about than Jack Harlow's new song. I worry that man's falling off worse than Chance the Rapper. And I say that as a Jack Harlow fan.
Jack. Jack.
Those two lizards that have been leading the charge have been making the rounds on CNN in their hopes to gain popularity so they can write a New York Times bestseller that never sells. Colorado even had their Supreme Court. I also just learned Colorado has a Supreme Court. I thought they just had white people with dreads. The Supreme Court voted on keeping Trump off the ballot. Now, in principle, this is bad, but when you look at history of how the state votes, it wouldn't impact the results as much as you think. They've been voting blue longer than that dude's been growing those dreads. Now, if Trump can pull off a win with all of this, I'll shotgun an ultra-right beer, even if it costs me $28 and we get it by the time they're trying to impeach him for the 7th time.
We'll do it live. We'll do it live!